handled it and validate it and not say a whole lot right away. And then did talk about the fact that that whatever his mom was feeling or struggling with in that moment, it wasn't about him and it wasn't his fault, right? And that it sounded to me like his mom was really struggling with something. And that this was her stuff that she was struggling with, not his, as painful as it was. And so tried to talk about that a little bit, but also validate the pain, not dismiss it or excuse mom, right? I acknowledge that what mom said was really horrible, right? And that no child should have to hear that from a parent. We talked a little bit about how he was going to navigate that when he went home. We were close to the end of the session. Mom wasn't there that day. He didn't want me to tell Dad right away. It seemed like he was okay. But I was aware I had to do a lot that week to manage my own feelings. So I think I had 2 sessions after that, but when I walked to my car at the end of the day, there was a part of me that was still like, all right, I'm getting in my car, I'm driving to his house, I'm picking him up, and I'm taking him home to my house. I know how to love that kid, right? I'm totally in like, you know, father bear, protective, like savior, rescuer, all that stuff. And but managed to not do that. But then also had to do a lot of work during that week around my anger toward mom. And some of that because of my shared social locations, right? As a trans man, a trans individual, and particularly my shared social locations as a trans adult whose family is still very ensconced in conservative religion and doesn't want any contact with me at all. So I had to grapple with a lot of that, right? And those messages. And but when I came back the next week and I touched base with mom and sort of ensured that she was going to be coming in, and so I started with mom and dad the next week. And part of where I started with mom was being curious, right? That you know, that I realized, and I think I talked to the son about that the week before too, but you know, that you were the one that went to the school and advocated, you went to the pediatrician, you did all of that, and this is what your son told me last week and relayed the conversation. And asked her to tell me what that was about, right? That there seemed to be this gap between the answer she'd given him and the other ways she'd been so accepting. And at first mom was a bit defensive and sort of made this piece about, well, his brother and I, we have this warped sense of humor and we say things like that and he never gets it, right? We don't really mean it. And so I didn't go there. I sort of validated that might be true and said, well, that might be true, and it also seems that that's a pretty hurtful thing to say, right? And it was very hurtful for your son. And I'm just wondering, with all the ways you've been accepting and yet saying yes to his question, whether or not there's some piece underneath that you're struggling with. And inside of seconds, mom was sobbing in my office. I've lost my baby girl, my only baby girl. I've lost my baby girl. And underneath was a lot of pain and a lot of grief. And I have some colleagues sometimes in their advocacy for trans and queer youth that have a really hard time holding space for parents who are angry or not accepting. And part of what I say to them and want to say to you is that it's been my experience that what I perceive as rejection, what a young person perceives as rejection, is rarely the whole story. And almost always underneath a parental rejection or what looks or is experienced that way is either grief or pain or fear. And it comes out in ways that communicate rejection to the adolescent or young adult, ways that may even sound that way to me, legitimately sound that way, right? Really be rejecting kinds of statements. But it's rarely the whole story. And so, you know, and part of being a family therapist means I knew going back into that session the next week that I had to manage my own reactions and maintain my alliance with mom, right? And that to help that young person, I couldn't see the parent as the bad guy, ever, no matter what they said or did, right? Because if I did that, I would lose my alliance with the parent. And that alliance was critical to that young person's health and well-being. And So, I write about that vignette a lot in the book and some of the intersections of our own emotional dynamics, but it is a piece that comes up sometimes, right? And some parents are struggling around acceptance or support. And so the caution I have is to not see that as the whole story and to not ever give up on a parent who's rejecting you, but to really work to make space for that, to validate whatever anger they're feeling, to validate how hard it may be to accept this, to validate their religious beliefs, to validate I'm not interested in changing your faith beliefs, right? That's not my goal, but it is my goal that your child grow up to be healthy and whole and alive.
In my own work, there's actually like a worksheet or step-by-step protocol for the steps for grieving for parents of transgender youth. And so that's something you guys can Google and
Right.
help me in my own work.
Yeah. And I think, again, go ahead.
You can respond to her. I was just going to ask about how much communication do you do to your trans clients about the possible grieving process with some parents who, a lot of them and I have clients whose mother oftentimes grieved about the loss of her daughter as well. And so I wonder, how do you have that conversation with your clients so they understand, again, like you said, that it isn't about them at all, and that it doesn't invalidate or take away from their experience of being, trans, but that there is some loss there.
I do talk about that pretty directly, and it's not true for all parents, right? Some parents don't grapple with that, but I do talk about with young people, young adults, even adults, that parents have their own coming out process, and you have been thinking about this, sorting this out, are ready to come out, long before your parents may have started thinking about that, and so in a sense, you're 5 miles further down the road, right? And part of what we do is have to help your parents catch up, but you may need to sort of run in place a little bit sometimes, right? While I work to get them caught up to you, right? And that's my goal. And if it sounds like I'm siding with them in a session, it's really because I have to come alongside of them to help them catch up to you. I have to come where they are right now in order to help bring them up to where you are. So we talk about that, and I talk pretty openly with parents and kids of any age that, our relationships still, in the world that we live in, our relationships with family members are very gendered. Parents have sons and daughters, right? Maybe we're moving toward a place where parents won't have that expectation, but we have sons and daughters, we have mothers and fathers, we have brothers and sisters, we have aunts and uncles, right? Those family relationships are very gendered. And so I do talk about, for some parents, having known us as their son or their daughter, there is a challenge making that shift. And it's not necessarily about not accepting us, right? It's about making that shift. And some parents are able to make that shift, some family members, some friends make that shift easier than others. And I also talk about the fact that most parents, I think, when a child comes into your life, whether it's by birth or adoption, almost all parents, when that child comes into your life, almost instantaneously, this sort of video begins to play in your head as a parent about who that child's going to be, how they're going to act, what they're going to look like, what they're going to do in their lives moving forward, right? What's he going to be like at 5? What's it going to be like when he takes his first steps, when he has his first crush? What's it going to be like? What are they going to want to do when they go to college, when they grow up? That those videos happen, and those videos play out based on our own assumptions as parents, our own heteronormative assumptions often, and rarely does any kid turn out exactly the way the parents' video played, right? And that's a challenge of parenting in general. That our kids never grow up to be exactly who we thought they were going to be, or even exactly who we wanted them to be, many times. And part of the task of parenting as kids move into adolescent and young adulthood is shifting those expectations and letting go of the ones that aren't materializing and embracing our adolescent or young adult child as who they actually are in the world and in our lives. And so there's ways in which I often normalize things for parents that seem so different because it's about their kid being trans, but the content is different. The process, the parental tasks are often the same. And that's helpful sometimes, making those links, right? If there's an older sibling in the family, the parents have likely already grappled with their expectations, having to let go of certain expectations. And it can be helpful to parents to make the link of, oh, I have done this before. It's like a different piece of content. But I do remember struggling with that, right? And finally getting on the other side of it. So sometimes normalizing things around adolescent, young adult developmental tasks or parental tasks around the process can be helpful, even though the content is different. Because some of what it means is that parents often do have the tools and the skills they need to get through this. They just don't realize the tools they used with that other kid or with a niece or nephew can be used with their trans kid, right? So.
I just have a quick question. It seems you work a lot in your books about cultivating families in transition this way. Have you ever experienced parents feeling in any way like protective of their relationship with their child? You know, you talked about the safe space that you're trying to cultivate, and if they feel safer talking to you, and parents catch on to that. Any like, I don't know, territorial? Have you ever experienced this with parents?
Sometimes, yes. You know, and I do move, as a family therapist, do move in and out, seeing parents alone, seeing young people, seeing everybody together. When parents are grieving, we do that work often separate from the young person or the adult person, right? Because often the trans person, the queer person, doesn't need to hear all that grief or doesn't need to watch mom or dad cry for 10 minutes with me, right? And so we often do that work, and I talk about why we do that work separately, right? And I talk with parents about what's the impact of them grieving openly at home, right? How's that? That's my family translator role. How's your adolescent or young adult perceiving this when you're grieving? And that they're often hearing a message of rejection, even though that's not what you're meaning to send. And we talk about ways and places that parent can grieve or talk about their fears. And we do have conversations at times about, you know, adolescents, all adolescents sometimes find it easier to talk to adults who aren't their parents about lots of things. And that's a normal adolescent thing, that's a healthy thing even, right? They're moving outside their family unit to begin to get support the way adults do, right? Not just from parents. And it's a healthy thing, but my goal is always to open up the communication in the family too. And to be a bridge that now that 15, 20-year-old has been able to talk to me about things, that part of the work is coaching them to be able to go back and talk to their parents, right? So we're close to the end here. The things I didn't cover are all in the book, and I didn't, almost intentionally didn't cover a lot about transitioning because there are a lot of resources out there about that, and I go in depth with that in the book. And there's not often, or hasn't been a lot of resources about working with trans young people on the other side of transition, right? Like Damaris and Robert both are, right? Dealing with life issues beyond coming out or beyond a social transition where they're moving through the world in their affirmed gender. So if we have a minute, I think I do want to share a last short video, which there's some great material in here about family acceptance, and the link is there. Tremendous resources in the Family Acceptance Project around LGBTQ youth. And I put some video resources at the end. This is kind of an amazing video of trans teens speaking to their self 10 years from now. And somehow the video is not quite loading up here. So link to the, oh, maybe there. There we go.
Saturdays used to be for college football. Now you drive 300 miles to watch
Downside
this.
of this, right?
Yes! Nice pop toss. Flag dancing? We've been there. From a free hot breakfast to a
Well, it
wall.
looks like we have 4 seconds to go.
Hampton by Hilton.
I'm not sure why this is not loading up here. But I've never seen that message pop up.
I think it's just refresh helps. Turn it off.
Yeah, let's see.
Delicious new Captain Morgan Loco Nut. It's exploding
all right,
with
well,
coconut flavor. Literally, so much coconut.
I'll turn it down for a second.
Okay, didn't see that. Then things got loco.
I don't know why it's not loading, but it doesn't seem to be. I don't know what we're getting. I haven't had that problem before. So it may be that you're able to Google that and have it come up. I did want to let you know that I have some book flyers here. I know you guys all got a copy, but if you want to take any of these back to colleagues or fellow students, you can feel free to take some, and they do have a coupon, so if you're giving it to other students in your program, they can order it at a discount with the coupon. And you can order it online. So I don't have a ton of them here. I have less than I realized, but you can totally make copies because if you order online, all you need is that code to put in to the publisher. So I'll put them there, and I'm not disappearing right away. So I appreciate your attention, and you've got my contact information at the end of the PowerPoint. So thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And you're gonna hang around for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you want your book autographed, this might be a good time. You will have access to all of the power.